Hey everybody, I am currently working on a number of videos right now, but I announced a video yesterday on the Facebook page called Star Wars Going Home to Stay. And it's a video that I'm working on that will impart my reflections on the original film. This is what spurred this video, but the reason that I'm doing that video is because since RetroBlasting began and since we've done the Star Wars Follies series, people have asked me constantly, politely but constantly, if I would review the original films. And I didn't feel like there was anything left to say because YouTube was practically built on Star Wars reviews. So I held off and I just focused on the Follies. But Melinda and I sat down this past weekend and watched a 4K copy of the original Star Wars, the 1977 version from Team -1. And I was kind of thinking about stuff, and I feel like I now have something to say. So I'll be working on that. But as part of that announcement yesterday, which was just a casual kind of announcement, there were some people who were talking about things like, well, you know, I can't wait to see Star Wars in 4K because I know it wasn't shot in HD originally. And I kind of sat back and I was like, what? And I've heard this before with people who, they say, well, I don't see the point of owning The Wizard of Oz on 4K because it wasn't even shot in HD. And I'm like, no, that's not right. So just to give a little clarification for anybody that's not aware, anything that's shot on 35 millimeter film, going all the way back to the silent era, anything shot on 35 millimeter film has an inherent equivalent of 4K resolution in it. I think what people are referring to when they say, I don't like the way old films aren't HD or old films weren't shot in HD, what they're actually responding to viscerally is the lens technology. Lenses and, to a certain degree, film stocks, because film stocks have also evolved and they're trendy. The film stocks that were trendy during the age of Jaws and Star Wars actually turned out to be detrimental because they degraded more quickly, which is why movies like Star Wars and Superman and all that kind of stuff have required such rapid and desperate attempts to save the original negatives, because the film stocks they were using at the time were actually junk. And they didn't know that. Lenses have come a very long way. Point I'm trying to make is whether you're watching The Maltese Falcon or Casablanca or Wizard of Oz from way back when, the film negative itself still has the potential to contain 4K levels of resolution. But the lenses were completely different, and the lenses captured imagery in completely different and sometimes inferior ways. So when you're talking about that, and then you're talking about early silver nitrate film stocks, which also imprinted that information differently with different grain levels and things like that, you get different looks. But that doesn't mean that the film isn't HD. It doesn't even, those films are all beyond HD. They just look different because of the technology being used to capture that image onto a format that was beyond HD. So that being said, I am not a home video collector. Okay, I know that there's a number of people out there who collect VHS versions of films, or they pick their favorite movie like Star Wars and they collect all the different formats. That is not what this is. This is actually, everything you see here are the formats that I bought at the time they were contemporary. And because it's Star Wars, and there's a few films like that, like Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, and a few classics like 12 O'Clock High and The Adventures of Robin Hood, I will collect those as the formats continue to improve. All of these that you're seeing here were bought at the time that they were released, contemporary with that home video technology. And I bring that up to say that I don't go backwards with that. I'm trying to chase reference quality. I don't want older stuff when it comes to film resolution because I know that old home video formats were inferior to the theatrical experience. Whereas newer home video formats, and finally with 4K, we're finally getting as close as we can in the home to a theatrical reference quality presentation. I bring up the Star Wars thing because I know that a lot of us in our generation have collected every format of Star Wars on home video that has come out. And in the process of that, there has become this illusion amongst certain fans. Now, before I start this part of my Unplugged, I want to make something very clear. I am not about to make an argument that the theatrical editions are, better overall than the special edition. In other words, I'm not about to challenge your opinion, okay? This isn't an opinion piece about that. So if you're over your keyboard right now and you're getting all hunkered down ready to fire off some blast because you're a special edition fan through and through, you need to just cool your jets, because I'm not about to sit here and make an argument that your versions suck or anything like that, okay? As a matter of fact, anybody who loves the special editions the best really doesn't have any room to complain, because your camp is already won. You guys are already getting all the support on home video from the official studio. So you guys really need to just sit back, calm down. Your opinion is safe. You win. And just let the rest of us debate this, okay? And let us do what we need to do. All right. Now that that's out of the way, there has been an illusion that has gestated over the last 15 years that it was good that the special editions were made because the original Star Wars films needed to be brought up to current technological standards. In other words, they weren't high definition. They weren't as good as Blu-ray or 4K. They weren't filmed that way. Now remember what I just said about film stocks being what they are. That illusion has largely come from the fact that these releases right here from 2006, the single-packed releases of the Star Wars trilogy that came with the bonus discs of the original cuts, demonstrated markedly inferior picture quality on those bonus discs. And so people were saying, oh my gosh, look how bad they looked back then. It's just so great that, the special edition is happened now, because those older films, the older versions looked horrible. No, they didn't. Because what you're watching is on the bonus disc, you're watching the laser disc version. You're watching the laser disc, which means that was an inferior scan that was done at less than DVD quality back when laser discs were the thing. It was better than VHS, but it wasn't even DVD. And that scan was on a file somewhere, and they just dumped it onto a DVD. They didn't try to rescan the original theatrical cuts and bring them up to a modern format. Because that's what it's all about, is the scan of the negative, or the scan of the inner positive, or the scan of the print. The print itself, like I said, is always inherently 4K because of the nature of what film is, 35 millimeter film, which is what the Star Wars trilogy was filmed on. But if you're scanning it in at a lower resolution, then you're not going to get the full experience. The reason the special edition on home video looks so much better than the originals do is because the originals haven't been scanned since 1991 or 1992 or whenever this came out. And I bought it in 95, but it was still in print then. The reason that they look better is because the special edition was scanned in at 1080p, which is high definition. 480p is DVD, 1080p is HD. Below 480p is Laserdisc, VHS in various numbers and formats. Which brings up the next point, which is the special edition exists on home video in a number of formats. This is the original Laserdisc release, which captures the 1997 version of the special edition. Yes, the special edition has changed as well, because in 2004, when they did the DVDs, which are right here, And then later on, they did the Blu-ray in 2011. They made other changes. The DVD kind of screwed up some audio stuff, but it gave Jabba the Hutt a facelift in the first movie. And then in 2011, when they did the Blu-ray, they added Anakin's ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi and did a number of other things. Point being is that these things are continually changing at the Star Wars level. The Star Wars house is continually changing this stuff. Some of it's subtle, like in the very beginning when the first version of Star Wars didn't say Episode 4 A New Hope, and then right before Empire Strikes Back during the theatrical re-release, they put it on there. And then on every home video version, it has said Episode 4 A New Hope, but it originally did not. Those are kind of big things, but in the grand scheme of the special edition, they feel little now. But Star Wars has been constantly changing in very small ways and then occasionally very big ways. So keep in mind what I just said about the scans. The reason that the old versions looked so bad on the 2006 release is not because they always looked that bad. It's because their negatives had not been, or prints, or whatever you want to call them, had not been scanned recently with modern technology. They had been scanned back when we didn't have HD scanners, or 4K scanners, or 8K scanners, or whatever they have now. Special edition? That's the one that keeps getting rescanned. But the funny part is, it hasn't been rescanned since the 2004 DVD. And it was scanned in at 1080p. The guys at Lowry Digital, who also restored James Bond, and they also restored the Indiana Jones films, were given a 1080p file of the 3 movies to master for DVD. And they weren't given enough time. And it was odd because normally they were given a bigger file, something that's you can reference better, something that's bigger, something that's higher resolution where you can really fix the print and really color time it properly and do all that stuff that needs to be done. And they've admitted in interviews we didn't have the time, nor were we given the elements necessary to do the kind of restoration that we had done for Indiana Jones and the James Bond movies. That same 1080p master, which was downsampled for the DVD, which is 480, was then used again for the Blu-ray. So we've been seeing the same master, essentially, since 2004. Now, when the Blu-ray came out, the resolution was better, but the master was still the same, with only minor color tweaks and fixing that audio problem that was in the 2004 discs. We've never seen even a Blu-ray master of Star Wars from a 4K source because it hasn't been scanned in at 4K. No version so far that I know of has been scanned in at 4K by the studio. That's where the fans come in, because the fans have been working on this over at the message boards like Original Trilogy for at least the last 14 or 15 years. And they're getting better and better at this too, just like home video gets better. You know, they're getting better and they're collaborating and they're coming together, they're organizing. The print collectors are coming together with the post-production experts, and they're finding a way to get these prints scanned and preserved, the last surviving prints of the original trilogy. At the same time that's going on, you have people like Adiwan who are trying to preserve and correct the special edition. So this isn't just original trilogy theatrical cut snobs, going at this. There are people on Original Trilogy right now who are trying to preserve the 1997 version of the special edition, the one that was theatrically shown, because that one has been abandoned in the later home video releases. That one's gone. They're trying to preserve that. They're trying to preserve, the VHS tapes. They're trying to preserve all the different ways that Star Wars has been presented, whether it was, video CD or CED, Betamax. They're out there trying to record and digitize all of this, and they're experts at it. Team -1 that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, what they've done is they have pulled together the best surviving prints of the original 3 films, and they're trying to get them scanned in and color corrected meaning color fix, because the colors have degraded and faded over time. Get them fixed, get them stabilized, and get preserved archival copies of these original films digitized for all time. And so far, they have done Star Wars and they have done Jedi. Empire was the one that was the most problematic, and they're still working on it. But they have done amazing work with preserving and putting together sort of Phoenix risen from the ashes archival copies in 4K masters of the 3 original cuts of Star Wars from surviving prints. Now, you've heard about the Harmy despecialized stuff, which is very good. It's a Herculean effort. Harmy should be applauded for his work. But what Harmy's doing is he's pulling together the best elements from everywhere and then digitally trying to stitch them together to recreate the theatrical cuts. This is not that. This is the actual unaltered theatrical cuts from release prints, and they are now being digitized and preserved. That's a very different thing. It's not a simulation. It is the original experience. Addy Wan is trying to take the special edition and truly enhance it and make it something special, arguably, watchable, cool. You know, take special edition, take out the bad stuff, put in more good stuff, dial it up to 12. So the fan base has rallied around all the philosophies behind the Star Wars original trilogy situation. It's not just people who are purists for the original cuts, and it's not just people who are, you know, special edition fans only. Everybody is doing everything in their various corners to enhance the viewing experience of the original trilogy. But why I wanted to bring up the 4K 77, which is what this is called. This is the Team -1 project, 4K 77, and then by extension 4K 83, and then Empire will be 4K 80. These copies, these renditions, are being done by people who are from our generation, who were inspired by and grew up with that original experience that has since been abandoned by the parent studios. Disney is making no efforts to save these movies in this form either. And it's weird because other films from other studios like Blade Runner, I'm trying to think of some other examples. Blade Runner is just the most overt example. But there are packages that these studios put together on home video that give you all the cuts. You know, you can, through seamless branching, you can watch Terminator 2 extended or theatrical. You know, you can watch Aliens extended or theatrical. It's what gives us choices, and all of these choices are ready and available to be scanned in at the latest resolution for Star Wars. You could scan in all the various, you know, prints of Star Wars 1997 Special Edition and instantly have that ready to go as one of the discs in an original trilogy box set. You could do a fresh scan of the archival copies of the theatrical edition. They could scan that in and immediately have that as a disc in the box set. And then they would have the latest rendition of the Blu-ray, that right there, that could be rescanned in, re-rendered out off the master file at a larger resolution. Would it take time and would it take some effort? Yeah, but the fans are doing this right now with the limited resources they have. And the 4K 77 experience and the 4K 83, the Team -1 experience, is staggeringly good, considering that these are release prints and the limited resources they have to work with. Is it a perfect, pristine, studio-produced Blu-ray experience? No. But it is the best-looking experience I've seen so far, because remember, that Blu-ray wasn't mastered off of a 4K scan. That Blu-ray is mastered just off of an old 2004 HD file. And the color correction is all weird, and it doesn't look correct. When you watch the Team -1 stuff, you are watching... It really is a revelation. It's like you're going back in time in a good way. Star Wars doesn't look crappy through Team -1. It looks the way that you remember it. And I can't stress how important that is and how mind-blowing that is. I mean, it's like when you suddenly have a smell from your grandmother's kitchen again, but you haven't been in your grandmother's kitchen in, 20 years. But just for a moment, This is that kind of moment, but for 2 hours, because it's all right in front of you again. And it's in widescreen, and it's 4K. It's brilliant. It's truly brilliant. And I applaud their effort. And the irony here is that these guys at Team Negative One, inspired by this series of films like we all have, they have saved this movie series as it was originally presented. They have saved it from the ether. And they've used the tools that were inspired and spurred on by the aftermath of the entertainment industry because of Star Wars. Star Wars and the industries that it spawned are responsible for things like nonlinear editing and consumer AV software and Adobe Creative Cloud and THX theater experiences and the home video industry, the home theater industry. All of that is largely in some way because of the influence of Star Wars. And yet, as we reach the zenith, no pun intended to the former TV company, but as we reach the zenith of home video, we have 4K widescreen televisions in our homes. We have 4K players. We have the ultimate in resolution, the best in home audio for a home theater. We can finally really watch these movies in ways that we couldn't when we were sitting on the floor in the 80s and the television looked like a piece of furniture. Like, this is now what movies can really shine on. Right as we do that, and Star Wars was responsible for all of that. The movies themselves that made all of this possible have been abandoned, except by the fans. And the fans are using that technology to save the films that created that technology. Is that not weird? The fans are using the technology these films created to save these movies. You couldn't make this up. I mean, it's a weird kind of tragic poetry. So when you're talking movies with your friends and someone offhandedly says, well, that movie wasn't filmed in HD. If it was filmed and it was filmed on 35 millimeter, it was filmed in HD. And that includes Star Wars. So if somebody tells you, oh, well, those original films, I had them on DVD and they look like crap, I'm glad they've been updated and fixed. They didn't need fixing in that level. They just needed to be scanned in again. And right now, it's the guys at Team Negative One that are doing the scanning. So I'm working on some new videos coming up here real soon, including the next part of the R2-D2 restoration, Star Wars related. There's a new Star Wars Follies coming soon. Next part of Robotech is coming in humanoids. So I got to get back to work, but just wanted to walk you guys through some of this. I was having some thoughts after that announcement yesterday. But yeah, a lot of stuff going on, and fans are doing some great work out there right now, some really great work. So support them if you can. Go out there into the internet and see if you can find this elusive Team Negative One project. It's worth it. So thanks for watching this, guys, and I'll see you on the next video.